Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. February is Black History Month, as it has been for a number of years, and so we want to talk some about that. And in the process, we're going to concentrate on Fisk University and the history of Fisk and its role in Black history, if you will. And for that purpose, we have with us Dean Loretta McDonald. She is Dean of Recruitment and Admissions at Fisk. So thanks very much. I appreciate very much your getting up early in the morning and coming down all the way from Nashville.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us, and let's begin by telling the folks a little bit about Dean McDonald.
Absolutely. Well, I am a graduate of the University of Tennessee at Martin and went on to pursue my master's degree in higher education administration at Vanderbilt. So I'll be finishing that here in May, and kind of stumbled upon Fisk by accident. I was doing an internship there and fell in love with it. So as a Nashville native, I was kind of embarrassed that I didn't know more about Fisk. So I'm in the process.
You're a Nashville native.
I am.
Well, how did you get over to Martin instead of Fisk?
I went to the highest bidder, I have to say. So that was a fun opportunity, and then just doing my internship at Fisk, I fell in love with it and pursued employment opportunities there, and that's how I ended up in admissions.
Okay, very good. And you're a Nashville native, been there all of your life?
Most of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, with that, folks, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and talk some more.
All I have to do to think about what I was physically before and what I am now, and I don't ever want to go back to that original situation.
The overall mission of the rehab team is always what is best for the patient and how we can facilitate maximum potential from every resident.
Well, the most important thing to me is that I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do, you know.
Everyday Miracles at Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Hello, I'm Larry McIntosh, and I'm asking you to elect me to be your property assessor. I have worked as a CPA and have 15 years of accounting experience. In addition, I worked for 16 years as a classroom teacher. I have a strong faith in God, and I currently serve as Sunday school director and deacon at my church. My experience as a CPA will allow me to capably and professionally lead the property assessor's office. The taxpayers of Coffee County deserve a property assessor who treats them with respect and is fair, honest, and responsible. I pledge to be that person. I, Larry McIntosh, ask you to elect me to be your property assessor on Tuesday, March 1st. Early voting starts Wednesday, February 10th. Thank you, and may God bless.
We're talking today, folks, with Dean Loretta McDonald from Fisk. She is the Dean of Recruitment and Admissions. And so she very graciously has agreed to get up early and come down here to spend some time with us. So, well, let's begin with Fisk. What do you want to tell the folks about Fisk? What's on your mind?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that really draw students and families to Fisk is its rich history. Fisk is the oldest university in Nashville, among about 15, 20 other universities, and so we have a pretty neat history.
1866.
Yes, so we are celebrating our 150th birthday this year, our sesquicentennial.
Sesquicentennial.
Yeah,
yes.
I've been practicing that word.
Well, we've just been visiting that word because we've had the sesquicentennial of the Civil War itself going on. So
absolutely,
okay,
and so we've been in Nashville a long time. And a little bit about Fisk: we were again founded in 1866 in response to the end of the Civil War. The Lincoln administration decided that it wasn't enough to just sign the Emancipation Proclamation, but they wanted to create an agency to help support freed slaves and getting acclimated into society.
We have to remind folks, that the end of the Civil War left something like 4 million blacks in the South,
Yes.
most of whom were totally uneducated.
Absolutely, and very impoverished. And so it wasn't very easy for them to kind of make a living for themselves. And so in response to that, you see the creation of the Freedmen's Bureau, which was kind of stationed in the former Confederacy and mainly in the South. And they kind of served as social workers for people. So they did everything from helping with medical care and creating hospitals to help clothing people, even helping freed slaves locate family members who had been separated from them during slavery. So they did a lot of different things. But where Fisk comes to play is that they really had an emphasis on education. And so that's when you see kind of a lot of these different schools in the South popping up. And so the Tennessee Freedmen's Bureau in particular, along with a few members of the American Missionary Association, found Fisk Normal School in Nashville. So it was founded actually in a different location than where we are today.
School, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
So currently we are at kind of 17th and or 18th and Jackson Street, but we were originally over where Union Station is, in some former Union Army barracks is where classes were first convened.
Yeah.
So again, it was just an opportunity to educate freed slaves at the time. It educated students all the way from 7 years old up to 70, just teaching people how to read and write. But you can imagine that was very financially hard to sustain, and so very quickly the school experienced a lot of financial difficulty. And so after just a few years, Fisk almost closed its doors permanently, but a group of students got together known as the Fisk Jubilee Singers.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, and so they took basically all of the money out of the Fisk treasury at that time and wanted to travel around the country to hopefully raise money to keep the school open. So it was a very risky endeavor, but that's where we see them bringing Negro spirituals into mainstream American music. And so traveled around the country raising money for the school, eventually made it all the way to England and sang for Queen Victoria, who was so moved by the message of their music and that their sound was very unique. And so she donated enough money to not only keep Fisk open, but build what is now Jubilee Hall, which happens to be the oldest permanent structure in the South for educating students of color.
Did most of that money come from Queen Victoria?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I knew that the Jubilee Singers had sort of fixed the financial situation
Yes.
to pay off the debts,
Yes.
but I hadn't realized that most of the money came from the Queen of England.
Absolutely. And so we are a national landmark in Nashville, and so we get a lot of visitors who love to come to our campus, look at the architecture, and see a lot of the artwork that we have around campus, including murals in the building and our art gallery and things like that. So we get a lot of fun traffic on campus.
Jubilee Hall was built at that time through the money that the Fisk the Jubilee Singers raised, and it's still there, right?
It is. Currently, that's where our freshman women live, and we actually have the original painting commissioned by Queen Victoria still hanging in that building as well. So we get a lot of people who come specifically to see that artwork.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we commemorate the Jubilee Singers every year in October, and the mission that they took on to help save the institution. And that is the tradition we still have today. You'll see the Jubilee Singers performing all over the country, singing at
still active.
Titans games.
I haven't heard much out of them lately. One time they made one visit to Tullahoma quite a few years ago.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I heard them sing. They were a very impressive group. So I'm glad they're still going.
Yeah, so very, very prominent group. So Fisk has been very involved in the community. Obviously, in that sense, when you fast forward to kind of the civil rights era, you see a lot of Fisk students who were very active in that movement, particularly in Nashville. So you have people like Diane Nash, Congressman John Lewis, who are very integral, particularly for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So they worked with a lot of students at a lot of the historically black colleges and universities in the South to be a part of the civil rights movement as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about the number of people that you landed on your doorstep back shortly after the Civil War. There were, I think I've seen some numbers that like there were some 11,000 freedmen. Freedmen is a term, by the way, folks, that the National Congress created that described the former slaves in the early days. That number, that name sort of petered out somewhere along the line. But I think I saw some numbers that there were maybe 11,000 or so freedmen in the Nashville area. All of whom, or most of them certainly, the vast majority of them are uneducated. And you open your doors to them, and as I think you mentioned, from age 7 on up. And you're talking very basic, like taking the former slaves and who had no education or whatever, and just teaching them to read and write.
Absolutely.
And do their arithmetic.
Absolutely.
Count. So, very good. And you mentioned Diane Nash, and I guess that was a name I'm not familiar with. What's her contribution?
Sure. So she was just a prominent civil rights activist in Nashville, in particular. And so when you hear about the Freedom Rides and things like that, she was just someone who was just a point person in Nashville as a student at Fisk, and after being a student, who was very integral in that movement in the area.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about some of your alumni. Who do we need to know?
The list goes on for days. We have a very awesome legacy, and every industry and art form is represented among our alumni. Of course, you have some of our civil rights activists like Diane Nash and Congressman John Lewis. You have the arts represented, so Judith Jamison, famous choreographer and part of the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. She's a Fisk graduate. People who are interested in just social justice and consciousness in general. W.E.B. Du Bois is one of our more famous alumni. Booker T. Washington sat on our board of trustees for some time. Thurgood Marshall was part of our Race Relations Institute at Fisk. So political figures like Dr. Hazel O'Leary.
Let's refresh folks a little bit about these two. You mentioned Thurgood Marshall, who was
a Supreme Court Justice.
Supreme Court Justice, a lawyer, and I think the very first black on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So, and then let's see, you mentioned someone else. That was also prominent about the same time. Well, at any rate, I remember hearing something about very early on a couple of students were mentioned. One was Sterling Brown. Does that name ring any kind of a bell? My understanding was that he had 2 jobs, and that sort of slowed his educational process. So he had very little by the time he was age 20, but he kept pursuing it until he did, in fact, graduate, and went on to become a national figure. And someone named Ella Shepard.
Yes.
And that name, I know that she was at least part of the Fisk Singers when they,
one of the original
Singers when they were, back when they were created. And she had arrived on campus with $6 or something of the sort. So, and I suppose that was kind of typical of your students in those days.
Yes.
Most of them were broke.
Yes, absolutely.
And Fisk didn't have a lot of money either, so it must have been a constant struggle.
Yeah, so again, and that's where the Jubilee Singers were so critical in the work that they did to help raise that money for the school. Some of the Jubilee Singers are still buried in Nashville, so part of our celebrating them every year includes a pilgrimage to some of their grave sites. But yes, financial difficulty plagued Fisk very early on because its mission was one that was just not very well supported, and so they did struggle. But 150 years later, we still have a lot of people who believe in what we do.
You're still there.
And we're still here.
Okay. Well, let's talk about one of your assets, really. Well, before we get into that, looks like we need to take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll be right back.
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
It's your trademark. That's something special everyone knows and remembers. It's your thing. It's made holidays special for decades and summers unforgettable for the entire neighborhood. It's made everyone laugh every single time. Don't let illness or injury keep you from doing your thing. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the South Jackson Gatsby Girls, starting the promotion for the Great Gatsby Gala that will be held at South Jackson
March 19, 2016.
Get your party hat on, folks. It's gonna be a ball. What about it, girls?
Here's to ya.
I'm meteorologist Leland Statham from the News Channel 5 Weather Center. Look to Jim Fuller and crew for local news night here on Channel 6.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Loretta McDonald, who is Dean of Recruitment and Admissions at Fisk. And let's begin by talking a little bit specifically about Black History, and the idea of having a Black History Month is not been around forever. As I recall, it was started originally as a week rather than a month in 1926 by somebody. I forget his name at the moment, and that was so there was it was felt that it was necessary to make a special emphasis to remind everybody that Black history had a very unique history. So it was Black History Week for most of the years, and the early or mid 70s got extended to a month. None of this was ever really official, as I recall. There was nothing legal behind it in particular. But then President Gerald Ford was the first one to really recognize it and recognize the importance of it in reminding us of the history of the blacks and their struggle to become rightful citizens. So it's been a month ever since. And what do you do? Do you do anything in particular in this month?
We do. The neat thing about being on a historically Black campus is that we kind of do Black History Month all year long, but we do like to definitely give back to the community and definitely be a part of programming that happens particularly at a lot of elementary and middle schools during this time. So we get a lot of requests to come, and whether it's staff or faculty or our students, to come and sit and read with students books that are about Black history, and reading to students, telling them about education and telling them about historically Black colleges and universities. And we donate a lot of paraphernalia from campus to help decorate little mini museums and things at elementary and middle schools. So it's really an opportunity for us to do something we get to do all year long for those who are taking time during February to focus on Black history.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your student population. And I say I had read the fact that you offered scholarships to undocumented people, and I wasn't sure what an undocumented person was. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, it just made sense for us as an institution founded on the basis of providing opportunity, that we take advantage of the growing population of Hispanic and Latino students that are in Nashville who have very limited education opportunities for colleges and universities. It's the practice that many institutions treat them like international students, so there's very little opportunity for scholarships, and the cost is very costly for them. So we decided a few years ago that we would be very intentional about not just recruiting Hispanic and Latino students, but providing aid for them to come to Fisk and really integrating Hispanic and Latino culture into our predominantly African American culture on campus. So we've hired some Hispanic and Latino faculty and staff that are bilingual, able to communicate with their families, providing, again, dollars to help make it possible for them to attend Fisk. We have Hispanic Heritage Week that we celebrate every September to celebrate their culture and teach our students about their food and dress and music and art.
So you're celebrating somebody else's history.
Yeah. So it's a neat opportunity for our students to learn about their culture as well.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Their culture. How do you define their culture a little bit? What happens during that time?
That week, oh gosh, they do a lot that week. Everything from famous films around Hispanic Latino culture. I think last year they showed a movie about kind of the civil rights movement for Hispanic and Latino students in LA and LA riots and things like that, them not being able to speak Spanish in schools in the 60s, so they showed a documentary about that. A lot of our Hispanic and Latino students represent a number of different countries, so they had a food fair and had different foods from their different countries for our students to try, and they had salsa dancing on campus. So it was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Super. You are fitting in where among the black schools in the country?
Absolutely. So there are about 105 historically black colleges and universities in the country, according to Forbes magazine. Yeah, according to Forbes magazine, we've been ranked as high as #1. This year, according to U.S. News and World, we're ranked #7. So we're always in that top tier of historically black colleges and universities every year.
If you were #7, who were a couple of the first 7?
The usual suspects: Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, Hampton, institutions like that.
Yeah, okay. All right. We'll talk a little bit about the atmosphere you're trying to create at Fisk. Is it something special?
Absolutely. I think our history speaks for itself, and a lot of our students really appreciate that. But they also have the opportunity to be in an institution that gives them a really great liberal arts education. We really make sure that our students are well-versed in writing and public speaking, and really having a broad spectrum of experiences in the arts and in the sciences and the social sciences, regardless of what their major is. So we have a focus on in their disciplinary studies, where they're taking what they're learning in their major and partnering with other majors to do work and to do research. We also have a smaller campus, so our class sizes are small. Students are not sitting in auditoriums of 200 or 300 other students. They're in classes of maybe
not
15, 20.
Lectures, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they have the opportunity, when there's only 15 or 20 students, to really know their professor knows them, and really takes a personal interest in their academic and personal development, and that's not something that students get at every university.
Yeah, by far. Okay, and you are headed in what direction? What's the future out there for Fisk?
Absolutely. So it's an exciting time to be at Fisk. Again, we're celebrating our sesquicentennial this year. We've experienced the 4th consecutive year of enrollment growth, so more and more students are choosing Fisk as an opportunity to further their education, and there are outcomes that students get to enjoy at Fisk that they don't get to enjoy at other institutions. We consider ourselves kind of a prep school for graduate study. About 61% of our students go on to graduate school within a year of leaving Fisk, and the national average is only 23% of students. So a very high percentage of our students go on to pursue further education, and we do a good job of preparing them for that. Study abroad and domestic exchange are another set of opportunities that our students can take advantage of, so they can study at other institutions in the United States that we've partnered with, and they can also go to other institutions around the world, like the London School of Economics in Beijing. So we have students that go there and study every summer, and that's just one of a number of opportunities that students can take advantage of by having a Fisk education.
Okay, very good. Well, guess what, folks? We could go on at some length, but we have run out of time. So we're going to have to take a short commercial break and wrap up.
The Kia Summers on Us sales event is going on right now at Russell Barnett Kia of Tullahoma. Let me tell you about this event. Purchase a new Kia Sedona, Kia Optima, Kia Forte, and receive 0% financing up to 66 months and your first 3 payments for free. For a limited time only, no strings attached. With America's best warranty, the 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, Kia is the power to surprise. The Kia Summers on Us sales event going on right now. Why buy anywhere else?
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We've been talking today, folks, with Loretta McDonald, who is Dean of Recruitment and Admissions at Fisk University in Nashville. And Fisk is a very significant school, and we don't hear enough about it. So it's good we've had the opportunity to get a little better acquainted. Dean McDonald, you have a little message you might like to deliver direct to the folks?
Absolutely, absolutely. Fisk is a really special place, and I definitely want to emphasize to any students who are interested in pursuing education past high school to consider Fisk, but just to really emphasize the importance of getting that college education in general. But for students who feel like Fisk might be an opportunity for them, if you are looking for a top-tier liberal arts education with an emphasis on the sciences and social justice, we definitely want you to consider us right here in Nashville. We take applications all year long, and we have a number of scholarship opportunities for students who meet certain criteria or who demonstrate need. And so we definitely encourage students to consider us if they're thinking about staying right here in Nashville.
Yeah. Are you going to benefit some from the governor's drive for 55?
I hope so. I hope so. I'm really impressed that he's taken that stance on really making sure Tennesseans have some form of higher education, and so I think that'll definitely drive more students to kind of see what opportunities are in their own backyard, like Fisk.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Well, folks, that is going to wrap us up for today. I want to thank Dean McDonald very much for getting up way before breakfast and coming down to join us for the show. And so by all means, we're grateful to you, and we thank you folks for inviting us into your parlor, and we'll see you next time.